Hi, welcome to this new series where I'll be putting up videos of Fundamentals of Human Geography, Class 12 NCERT. This is Chapter 1, Human Geography, Nature and Scope. Although this chapter is about human geography, but let me just give you an overview about geography as an academic discipline. Geography is divided into two branches, that is, physical geography and human geography. Physical geography, or sometimes we call it as physiographic, focuses on geography as an earth science. It aims to understand the physical problems and the issues of Earth. Now, Earth consists of lithosphere, hydrosphere, atmosphere, pedosphere, flora and fauna patterns, which means biosphere. All of this combines to form Earth. On the other hand, human geography is a branch of geography that focuses on the study of patterns and processes that shape the human society. It includes the human, political, cultural, social, and economic aspects. Now, these two branches have subcategories as well. I will not go into the detail of each category. I will broadly tell you what they are just as a general information. Physical geography includes biogeography, climatology and meteorology, coastal geography, environmental management, geomorphology, hydrography, oceanography, pedology, and many more. Similarly, human geography includes social geography, cultural geography, development geography, economic geography, geopolitics, demography, urban geography, transportation geography, and many more. Now, this line over here, geography got subjected to dualism. The meaning of dualism is two aspects for a single subject. There is two views on geography. One is giving importance to environmental side, and the other is giving importance to the social factors side. And that's how it got divided into physical and human geography. However, you must realize that nature and human are inseparable elements, and they should not be seen separately. Now try to understand these lines. I'm reading it from the page. We often talk of the face of the earth, eye of the storm, mouth of the river, snout of the glacier, neck of the isthmus, and profile of the soil. I hope you can sense a bit of poetic feel in these lines. We are comparing human body parts with the physiographic divisions of the nature. If you recollect in English, this sort of reference and comparison is known as metaphor, which is a figure of speech in which a word or a phrase is applied to an object or action to which it is not directly related. So, this was the introduction part of this chapter. Pretty long, isn't it? Well, I hope you found it informative, and I think anyone who is beginning to read about geography must know all these things that we just read, because that's how one can have an idea as to how this subject is closely related to our lives. So the first topic of this chapter is nature of human geography. Under this topic, we study the interrelationship between the physical environment and socio-cultural environment. Once again, let me just quickly tell you the elements of physical environment. They are landforms, soils, climate, water, natural vegetation, flora and fauna. And on the other hand, the elements created by human beings are houses, villages, cities, road, rail networks, industries, farms, ports, and items of our daily use. And when we are talking about interrelationship between them, we simply mean how humans have modified the physical environment, which in turn has impacted their lives to a great extent. By modification, we mean how we created farms on bare land, how we created rail networks despite uneven rough terrain. So these are the path-breaking changes we are talking about. We move on to the next topic, naturalization of humans and humanization of nature. Now we must realize that in order to develop or make something, we need to be aware of our surrounding and the things that is required to make what we want. This line over here nicely sums it up. Human beings were able to develop technology after they developed better understanding of natural laws. Some examples are the concepts of friction and heat helped us discover fire. Then understanding of the secrets of DNA and genetics enabled us to conquer many diseases. Then we have the laws of aerodynamics to develop faster planes. So all these are fine examples of why knowledge about nature is extremely important to develop technology. This type of interaction between human society and strong forces of nature was termed as environmental determinism. So if I were to make this term in very simple form, it simply means it is the study of how the physical environment plays an important role towards the development of nations, states, and societies. A small example would be coal was always there, but if we didn't know how to extract it, today we wouldn't have enjoyed the benefits of constant supply of electricity. As time went by, we understood nature in more better manner, which made us create more efficient technology. Today we have discovered so many ideas and options. When there are many options, a sense of freedom comes from within. It creates endless possibilities. Today, due to electricity, we have computers, and with computers, we are able to learn anything anytime, just like how you are watching this video and doing your learning in the most efficient manner. Again, this is a very small example in front of discoveries like ports on the coasts, oceanic routes on the ocean surface, and satellites in the space. This all was possible only after knowing the nature's law and then creating the necessary tools. Now we are going to learn about two geographical theories, environmental determinism and environmental possibilism. We'll try to understand both of these theories simultaneously. Let's talk about environmental determinism. It was first coined by Ellsworth Huntington. Although this theory was very popular, but it has long been discredited in academic circles. So this theory says that culture of any place is strictly determined by the physical environment. In other words, a population's success is not by itself, but because of the environment it is situated in. For example, areas that are too hot or too dry or too cold cannot sustain human life, and population living over there will not have much success. A good example would be central part of Africa. They support this theory. These countries are very hot and have very few resources, and these countries have very little economic success. Now let's talk about environmental possibilism. It was coined by Vidal de Lablache, a French geographer. This theory was created in response to the determinism theory. It was widely accepted because of its more liberal approach. This theory says that culture is determined by social conditions and not strictly by the physical geographical condition that the population lives in. For example, humans are able to overcome any environment problems and nothing can hold them back. Japan is a country that supports this theory. They have economic success and supports large population despite of their small size and lack of resources. Now there is a third theory introduced by a geographer named Griffith Taylor. His theory is an interesting one. He proposes to choose a middle path between the two ideas of environmental determinism and possibilism. He termed it as neo-determinism or stop-and-go determinism. So what he means by this theory is that possibilities can be created within the limits which do not damage the environment, and there should be accountability. For example, if your company cuts down trees for wood, for every tree that you cut down, you must plant a tree. And further, there should be a check by some authority on overutilization of resources. There should be some sort of accountability for the damages that occur. I hope you are now well aware of all the three geographical theories. Go through it once more to get a better grip of it. And the last topic of this chapter is human geography through the corridors of time. Human beings have always adapted themselves with the nature. There is no doubt about that. We have read many early men's stories wherein they rely on nature for food, shelter, clothes, and all other amenities. But one important thing we must realize is that earlier there was very little interaction between different communities and societies. They used to attack each other for establishing control and authority. Therefore, it is pretty obvious that knowledge about each other was limited. As in today, how we talk to each other through so many platforms and exchange information, this wasn't possible back then. So the only way information traveled was through travelers and explorers. They used to maintain a record about their travels and visits. Now, there is another catch here as well. Navigational skills were not developed. There was no GPS or any communication line through which these travelers would find information about a particular place. Hence, they always went to places which were known to the mankind and avoided unexplored region because of danger. I'm going to go a little away from the book as it doesn't have the required information, so bear with me. In the late 15th century, that is the time after 1450, many lands previously unknown to Europeans were discovered during this period. That's why we call this period as the Age of Discovery in the European history. Since then, mysteries about countries and people started to open up. Similar kind of discoveries were made by the British. They started exploring faraway lands in order to access the resources of those regions. That's how we Indians came to their mind, as the Indian subcontinent was rich in minerals and that attracted the European traders. Anyways, if we go further, this will turn into a history lesson. So this is how the human geography developed over time, and today it got expanded to numerous subfields that gives a better understanding of its subject matter. So if at all you're asked a question, at what point in time was the beginning of human geography? So always remember, it was during late 15th century. With this, we have come to an end of this chapter. I hope you found this video informative. As usual, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. If you enjoyed these videos and see a purpose behind watching them, please like the video and comment down below. Until then, catch you guys later and talk to you guys on the next one. Peace.